877-881-1053. Who is the non-quarterback on this Cowboys team that is most needed for a successful season?
Ooh, I love this.
Okay, because it was a fun conversation on the Mina Kimes podcast where they were going through every NFC team. They're like, who's the most important non-quarterback on every NFC team? So, of course, they get to the Cowboys, and it's Mina Kimes, it's Robert Mays. They both do a great job. Here's two separate clips. I want to start with Robert Mays. Here's his thoughts on who the most important non-quarterback is on the Cowboys for this season.
I said Stephon Gilmore. You look at all the other pieces, okay? The offensive line's coming back. I think that's going to be a plus unit. Like, I feel very good about that group of players. With Tyron Smith stepping back in at left tackle, Tyron Smith at left guard. Offense, you're dropping Brandon Cooks in there, and that I think allows Michael Gallup to be in the correct space in the pecking order where he should be on any receiving core. CeeDee Lamb now becomes your 1. You have a 1B, and on defense, I think every other spot I feel pretty good about. They have a lot of flexibility on the back end. They go get Mazie Smith in the first round, which I think is the one spot along their defensive line. They really needed help. This is the best pass rush in the NFL last year. Position-wise on this team heading into the playoffs last year, the two spots I felt worst about were one more pass-catching option and their number 2 outside corner. And they added guys at both of those spots. And I think that Stephon Gilmore at this age, if he can hang on to good to above average play at that spot, I think they have a chance to be a really, really good defense. Picking Gilmore here feels like a commentary on how bullish I am about the Cowboys roster. That's kind of how where I'm seeing it.
We talked about this the defense is, I love the Gilmore trade back when it happened, and the defense is really good and really stacked.
Okay, so there's Robert Mays. He's going with Stephon Gilmore. I certainly understand where he's coming from there. And towards the end of the season, there was, once Anthony Brown was banged up, it's going, okay, it was for a few weeks they were trying to pull it together. What's going on? You had crappy quarterbacks.
Mackenzie Alexander, Trayvon Mullen. It was a who's who of let's just throw somebody out there and see what they can do.
But then Dan Quinn got it figured out, and I think there's a little bit more depth there. And a lot of it comes down to the trust of having Dan Quinn to put guys in the proper spot. And so if there is an injury to Diggs or Gilmore, I think they'll be able to figure it out. With McQuamu and Bland and Jordan Lewis coming back. And so I think you're going to be okay there, but I understand where he's going. I'm really not concerned at the defense. I think the easy answer would be Micah Parsons, of course, but I just think the defense is super dominant.
I'm just thinking about the offense, and I'm looking at this situation where...
Are you doing all right?
Not really, but I'm trying to fight through it.
I'm proud of you right now. It's that lung fungus, man.
It might be.
You've been eating dirt.
Been eating a lot of dirt. If you're the Dallas Cowboys on offense, can you play without CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb very likely could be the answer there.
Or can you play without Tony Pollard?
Well, that's
they've proven they can't play without Tony Pollard, right? In the playoffs.
Well, last year they certainly couldn't.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's a great leaping point for Mina Kimes to give her suggestion on these matters.
I went with the spot that I think they're actually the thinnest. It might not matter, and it certainly violates my T-shirt, which says "Throw the damn ball." I went with Tony Pollard.
Yeah,
because holy smokes, there's no one behind him right now.
That is true.
And look, I think the argument against this is okay, well, they can, so the people behind them, I don't see, it's Ronald Jones and Deuce Vaughn, who is fun player, gadget guy. He's not an every down back. They still need Tony Pollard to be the version of Tony Pollard that we saw before the injury, a running back who has consistently produced above and beyond replacement level over the course of his career. Last year, he was third in the NFL in rushing yards over expectation per carry. He runs well between the tackles. It is a fallacy that he does not. He gives you juice outside. He gives you multiplicity as a pass catcher. He had the second highest rate of runs going for 10 or more yards in the NFL. He is a weapon. If he gets hurt, that is, I think, actually a pretty big problem for this offense because of the depth issue.
See, I think higher of Deuce Vaughn than she does.
Yeah, I don't think she knows Deuce Vaughn.
No, she does. I clipped it, but she said that she's like, she views Deuce Vaughn as not an every down back, more of a gadget player. Yeah. That's her thoughts on it.
Well, and I think Deuce Vaughn can be an every down back.
He's proven in college he could be an every down back.
I mean, the workload was insane. And to me, I think it's just, hey, we're saying a short back, you can't do it. Well, I mean, people were saying that about Tony Pollard too, right up until this year. And Pollard proved until the playoff game he can carry the workload. I do think, look, it's a question mark. I hear what she's saying, but I do think you can get productivity from Deuce Vaughn if you had to rely on him. I think you can get productivity from a Malik Davis if you have to rely on him. Now, how do the Cowboys feel about Malik Davis? We'll see. We'll see when we get out there to Oxnard and training camp and how much they're willing to give him the rock a little bit, because they certainly weren't against San Francisco in the playoffs. For me, I love this topic. I'm going Tyler Smith. Because you're looking at him right now starting at 2 spots. Where's he going to line up week 1? Is it left tackle? Is it left guard? You can mention another lineman, but to me, he's the only one that has the true versatility to kick inside or outside. They're not doing that with Zach Martin.
100%. I think Tyler Smith, he's your week 1 training camp left guard. He's your week 1 regular season left tackle. Due to obvious things about Tyron Smith.
Sure.
Now, you heard Robert Mays a few minutes ago bullish on this offensive line because he's seeing Tyron Smith back, and the assumption, I guess, is that he's going to be healthy. But I certainly don't have that assumption. If you guaranteed me a healthy Tyron Smith for this year, then yeah, I think you're talking about a top 5 offensive line in the league, more than likely, assuming Terrence Steele, picks up where he left off of his injury. So I like where you're going with Tyler Smith. I think that's a very, very fair point. I think for me, and I lean towards Mina Kimes with her thoughts on the running back group, but I also understand the importance of the running back position. Like, if you're going to have an issue at a spot, running back could be one of those spots. I do think a stable of those names you just mentioned can get the job done. Not at the level of which Tony Pollard was doing last year.
You might not have elite production like TP was giving you.
But that doesn't necessarily worry me if the most important piece on this offense actually plays well, and to me, that's Michael Gallup. Ooh. I'm assuming CeeDee Lamb is being himself. I'm assuming Brandon Cooks is being himself. But what really sets some of these teams apart, do you have a third guy that defenses have to worry about? If Michael Gallup could get back to himself being a deep target, big play guy, that's what he was. Defense is having to respect him, and now you have CeeDee Lamb, who's a bona fide number 1, Brandon Cooks, who's an upper level number 2, and now you have Michael Gallup. If he gets back to his best self, which I'm not necessarily confident in, but my gosh, if he does it, now you're talking about a guy who's a tweener. Is he a number 2? Is he a number 3? But he's going to garner favorable matchups for sure, and I think it just opens things up for your offense in a huge, huge way. And like when you look at last year, next gen stats, Michael Gallup's average separation from his nearest defender tied for 116th out of 121. He was 112th in catch percentage out of 121. I mean, just borderline unplayable.
Yeah, you could see it on the tape. It showed up big time.
And this team needed weapons in the game that mattered most. And so that's the thing that I keep going back to. And if you tell me that you have a healthy Michael Gallup who's back to being himself, I already know what I'm getting from Brandon Cooks. I already know what I'm getting from CeeDee Lamb. Now you're talking about, holy smokes, this offense can really be much more high octane than certainly what it was.
You wouldn't
be
stressing about a lack of weapons. 100%.
And I'd much rather have, if you told me I could have a healthy Tony Pollard or a Michael Gallup of what he was at his peak a couple years ago, I would take that for this offense.
I'm sitting there thinking, because I was trying to, the reason why I asked you the question, because I just feel like if they didn't have Lamb here.
Oh, they'd be completely.
Yeah, and I know what you guys are talking about with
CeeDee Lamb's a fair answer as well.
I mean, I just, the one thing was Pollard, and they just were stymied. They couldn't do anything against the 49ers without him in the lineup. And so that's what made me think, and I think Mina might be onto something about, the guy, I mean, with Pollard, because if you didn't have him, where would your running game be? I could say I don't agree with her about Deuce Vaughn. That guy's got, if you go back and look at the numbers, he's got plenty of carries. He's got over 500 something carries, maybe 600 something carries, while he was at Kansas State, in the time he spent there. So to me, can he carry the load? Sure, he could. For 17 weeks, I think he's capable, But this wide receiver crew, they can't afford to lose a CeeDee Lamb.
I agree.
They can't afford to lose. And I think adding Brandon Cooks is a good thing, but I don't know if Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup and Jalen Tolbert would put any fear in defensive coordinators.
You've talked about that. Like Brandon Cooks has put up number one level production, but that also might be a reason why he's been moved so much, because he's never really been that wide receiver 1 on a team. He's a great player to have, but he's more of a wide receiver 2 than a 1. And all of a sudden, everybody's moving up if you lose CD.
Yeah, and if the question was like guy you can most ill afford to lose due to an injury, I think CeeDee Lamb would be that. For the context of this particular question of, okay, I know what I'm getting out of these guys. Of course, injury is a factor on all these things, but
you're saying the most underrated. Is that what you were saying?
What I'm saying is just like the most important one to like the most important non-quarterback. If you feel like you know what you're getting from all these different guys, a guy that could play above maybe what you think he's going to play, like I don't know that Michael Gallup's getting back to his old self.
Yeah.
But I think if he does, it could really change the outlook for the entire offense.
Sure.
The one they need to hit is Tolbert. They need Tolbert.
And that's
they need
every single picture that's been posted out. It's him working out with Dak. It's him working out.
They need Tolbert not to be another bust.
Yeah.
They don't need that.
Be a big offseason. I know a lot of people have written him off. The Cowboys sure haven't. And yes, T.Y. Hilton, still a free agent, is available in a pinch. I'm sure he's a backup option for the Cowboys.